So thank you for joining us today. This is our 5th TESOL Chile webinar. We are really, really proud to have our guest, Liliana Vidal, who will be talking about the topic about breaking the binary in ELT, all right? So this is very important for us nowadays in our country. She will talk about some other things that have been happening around the world as well, or maybe just next door, actually. She will present, so she will be presenting today. And what I want to invite everyone is, if you have questions or if you want to make comments, you can use the chat, please. You can ask questions at any time during Liliana's presentation. If Liliana also invites you to open up your mic and participate, please do so, and feel free to just express yourself in the chat or in the microphones. And if you ask questions at any time in the chat, we will probably just take it by the end, but just make sure that you write it down anyway, because we really, really want to hear from you. Also, I'd like to say welcome to our followers on Facebook. If you're following us there, thank you for watching, right? Whenever you're watching this, because it will be recorded, thank you for watching and thank you for joining us. So without further ado, I would like to introduce first myself. I am TESOL Chile president for this period, and I would like to introduce my colleague, Carla Palma, who will carry on with this part of the webinar. Carla, take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Carla Palma. I'm TESOL Chile Vice President. And tonight, for me, this afternoon for you, I have to present our lovely guest, who is Liliana Vidal. She's a graduate teacher of English and holds a bachelor's degree in Lengua y Literatura Inglesa at UCEL Rosario, Argentina, and master's degree in teaching English as a foreign language from Universidad Europea del Atlántico, Spain. Due to her interest in neuroscience and emotional intelligence, she studies neuroscience and education, multiple intelligences, and self-regulation, and neuropsychoeducation at Asociación Educar. She has a formation about neuropedagogy from Nebrija University, Spain. Liliana carries out research about learning disabilities and other disorders. She gives lectures about neurodiversity, universal design for learning, UDL, emotions and how to regulate them, neuroscience and emotional intelligence. So thank you so much, Liliana, again for joining us in this lovely webinar. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. We are going to talk about a topic that is quite controversial nowadays. The idea of the webinar is to start raising awareness about the topic, and the idea is also to work together to see, I'm going to tell you my point of view, or at least my ideas, and then I want to hear your ideas too, and your situation there in Chile. I think there is someone from Argentina too, so, and the people who are going to see us too. So we are going to start. First of all, I'm going to start telling you a little piece of story, yeah? And it says, Paul, do you have a girlfriend? Parker asked me. I don't, I replied sentently, hoping to avoid the topic altogether. Why? She queried. Because I don't want one, I said. Why? She asked again, smiling at me. It was clear that I wasn't getting out of this one. This first grader had questions and would demand answers. Because I have a boyfriend, I finally exhaled. Oh, that's weird, she said. I understand. Sometimes when things are different, they seem a little weird. And I replied, why do you think it's weird? Well, I just don't like when people make fun of you. I feel bad for you. In these few minutes, it seemed as though my heart was broken and put back together all at once. My idea is here thinking about maybe a prospective student or a student we have that when says, because I have a boyfriend and I finally exhaled. What's happened or what we do as teachers to make our students feel free to speak? And this is where I want then to listen to you and to see how we work that in a classroom and how can we think, if we as teacher, can we think outside the heteronormativity, or about the binary between men and women, or female and male? So this is my question today. I know that sometimes we look through the eyes of this binary idea, and we cannot go outside this. And why don't not you think about this? There are so many other possibilities, yes, like male, female, gay, lesbian, and many others. So what happens? My idea here is to question about what happened with us as teachers with all this. And I want to do a Mentimeter. If you want to, if you can go, you can. I see if I can share my. I don't know if I have here. I think I can share the. Let me. And I want to.
Maybe they can scan with their cell phones.
If they can, it's possible. Then you have the there. I don't know if you can see the code.
Yes, the code
Yes.
is visible. So yes.
So I'm going to. The idea we can answer. I'm going to show my. Let me go. Leave the presentation a second, and I'm going to show my my Mentimeter here. So these are the two questions that I want you to. Do you think that the school that you work now is inclusive? Yes or no? And the other one, what's happened in your class? Yes, what's happened? This is the two possibilities that I want you.
Sorry, Liliana.
Yes.
I don't think we're seeing the page that
Sorry,
you are telling us. We are seeing your presentation.
Okay, sorry.
And
yes, you're right.
Is there a possibility that you can share the Mentimeter link in the chat?
Yes, I do it.
Probably it'd be easier for people to just click on it.
Okay, yes, I do it now. Just now. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, there it is.
Brilliant, thank
So,
you.
So we can present maybe. Are you see now the?
Yes, we're seeing the graphs from your
Okay.
Mentimeter. Right.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. There you
How
go.
many nodes? Well, now we are quite.
We probably need to get a minute. All right.
That's great. Because sometimes we think about, when we think about inclusion, we always think about students with learning disabilities or students with some disorders, but there are many things that we had to question as teachers, yes, about this, about inclusion in some way, and equity too. Okay, this one, we can go, this is the other one. In your practices, one-on-one, okay. Let's see, we can go. That's perfect. Let's see here. Oh, yes, a lot of yes, that's great. I don't know, there are more people voting. Everybody could have the access to the link and everybody could vote. I don't know, there are 17, 19, okay, 20. Right. Maybe now. Yes, that's great. Right. Let's see here how we are. Okay, 2012 out of 12 no out of And this one, we as teachers maybe are more inclusive than the school or the institution in itself, maybe. Then we are going to talk a bit about this. I don't know if everybody was able to vote, or we can continue. What do you think, Barbara? Can we continue or we wait a second?
Maybe we can
If
wait
somebody-
a second.
A
Some
second to
people
see if
find.
just
There you go.
14. Yes, that's great.
If you want, there we go. There you go.
Yeah, that's great.
Good numbers.
Yeah. And 14, yeah. 14 yes out of 20 no's. Okay. I think it's a hard topic sometimes to think about. I don't know how much we think when we choose the material and all those things. So we are going to talk about this. Okay, do you think it's okay? I don't know if
Yes.
somebody needs to, yes, so we can continue a bit. So I'm going to share again my presentation. Yeah, we'll continue. Okay, so here when we talk about, we said before about the binary idea, yeah? Another way is to talk about heteronormativity, no? Thinking about, for example, okay, we in general, we see with the lens, we can see between female and male, no? So we are all the time thinking, but we don't sometimes consider about the all the other people that sometimes are marginalized, like lesbian, gays, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, we have a lot of. And these are the people who are outside of this heteronormativity, and they belong to the LGBTQ plus, the community that started in the 90s. And this is all that, because it's what it means that. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, transsexual, queer, questioning, intersex. Ally is a person that maybe is not considered part of the community, but helps the other to spread the voice about this. Asexual, pansexual. Then I'm going to share, if you want, the presentation so you can read maybe many of the classification that you have there. And this is something that I took that I really, I think is quite important. And it's talking about gender terminology, yeah? And we think about, for example, the gender attribution, how your gender is perceived by others, the gender expressions, the sex assigned at birth, intersex, female or male, and the gender identity. And this is important because that you have a brain, because it's what you have in your brain, how you identify yourself, how you see yourself. So thinking again, coming back to the school that we are interested, what's happened with our students, or how we consider them when they identify themselves not as a binary, and they feel that they cannot find a place where they can feel identified, or a safe place to say maybe what is happening, or to talk about what is happening. And so this is, I think, where we had to pay attention. Here we have another kind of definitions. And this one I found that United Nations, yes, has in the goal 4, talks about that the state committed to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And I think we had to that because sometimes we don't have this. There are a lot of international laws that protect that, and they are against the bullying and the harassment that some people, some students from the LGBTQ community sometimes they had to go through. Yeah, so there are international laws that protect this. For example, in Argentina, I was telling Barbara that 1 week ago, I think, or 2 weeks ago, now we have a non-binary identity card, so people can go and register when they feel that they are not inside that heteronormativity. So they can get a non-binary identity card, yes, identification. So the problem here is that all these people that sometimes we have at school, the gender diverse students, they suffer and they have a lot of consequences or the symptoms that we can see when they cannot find a place inside our classroom or inside our schools. One of the symptoms can be school avoidance, anxiety and depression, suicidal ideation, risky sexual behavior. So we have to pay attention, because maybe not paying attention to them we can really damage them, or we can really make them feel out of our classroom. Yeah. So if we think about schools in general, for example, the question of uniform. Always a uniform, we have boys and girls. The skirts for the girls, the trousers for the boys, and there's no something for the non-binary students. Another problem, toilets. What happens when we go to the schools? Yeah, sometimes we don't have a all-gender restroom. We have men and women, but we don't have a safe place for someone who doesn't fit in that place, for example, that is not considered binary. Thinking about another thing that I thought about was how we call the roster, when we call their names, because sometimes we call our students with a name that they have in the identity card, but they don't feel like that. So that can be a barrier for, you know, that when we talk about when a student cannot learn sometimes, and we talk about the students can have barriers, or maybe what we are giving them or showing them, or the material that we're showing, they have barriers for participation, yes? So maybe the fact that we call them with a name that they don't feel identified with can be a barrier for them inside our classroom. So maybe to think, okay, what is the name that he feels like he or she, or, well, that's another problem with the pronouns, feel identified with, yeah? So maybe to have a talk with this person, or to start the class thinking about, okay, or talking to them and say, okay, there is somebody else or somebody that prefer to be called with a name, maybe come later and talk to me. Try to make students, or maybe, for example, like we're in Zoom, maybe your name, and you can put she and hers, or you have other ways or other pronouns that you can use to show your gender, yeah? Or this one, or the roster in the classroom. So maybe you can talk with the students and to try to top secret, maybe to keep for you what the student tells you, but maybe to use another name. Or maybe you can say, okay, I'm going to call you with numbers, or I'm going to call you with names, I don't know, or colors. So anybody feels calm, because you are calling someone with the wrong name, yeah? If you know that it's someone in the classroom that maybe don't feel identified, and this person doesn't feel identified with the name that they have in their identity card or in their roster. And another thing that we are going to talk about today is curriculum. It says curriculum can serve as a mirror when it reflects individuals and their experience back to themselves. And it says that at the same time, curriculum can serve as a window when it introduces and provides the opportunity to understand the experiences and perspectives of those who possess different identities. And now I want to, if you want, I want to listen to you. What do you think, what's happening in your curriculum, and what's happening in your school when you start teaching, and how do you manage to work with this topic? I don't know if someone is interested to speak and tell something about this. Is there anybody who wants to speak?
So if you want to participate here, guys, you feel free to open up your mic, or if you want, you can just write on the chat.
Yeah. Nobody wants? Nobody feels like
I would like to participate.
Great, that's it. Great.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you, Liliana.
Hello.
I remember that last semester I had my first practicum, and it was with girls of 8th grade. And I thought about asking them first or asking their guide teacher about which pronouns they would prefer to be called, because I was told at first that there were some non-binary students, like 2 of them, but at the end I couldn't because the curriculum were not accepting that. It was a Catholic school only for girls, and they were taught about how to be feminine and how to be woman. And that was reflected also in the textbooks of the class. So even if I want to do something different, I was not allowed to, because I was going to be the point trigger that maybe could cause a problem in the future, maybe start questioning this.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, that's sometimes, that's why sometimes the curriculum can reflect or can help us, no, to start talking about the problem. But sometimes, okay, depends on the place where you work. You can really talk about this or not. And it's a pity because again, we had to think about our students or how we can help them to speak and to say how they feel or because sometimes they know that there's something is happening to them, but maybe they don't know what really. So maybe with some certain activities they can feel identified and they can start talking about that. So I don't know if there is somebody else that wants to speak about this. I don't know if there are some in the chat. If not, okay, great. So we can continue. So thinking about the examining our practices and curriculum, now that sometimes we have that's hidden gender bias in the curriculum. So we always are seeing what we prepare our classes, or as with this, as she said, we are always looking through the eyes of that heteronormativity. Yeah. So I was thinking about that, and you mentioned that what kind of text we show our students? What is the stereotype? We talk about men and women, we talk about binary and non-binary. What kind, and also there is a problem, okay, what kind of, for example, roles, if you choose a book, okay, if they're performing, you have a woman or a girl, okay, is the woman always in charge of housekeeping, because you see the picture, the mom is cleaning, the mom is taking care, or what's happening with boys, or the kind of pictures, because sometimes we have pictures that the same as we're going to see that I put about families, always typical family, mom, dad, and sometimes it's not allowed to show other kind of families. Maybe what we can do is to change, a bit, maybe presenting a reading or a text or a picture where you can show other kinds of families, other kinds of people or relationship. Yeah. Also the dialogues that you talk about. I also thought about, do I encourage as teacher empowering and non-sexy behavior among my students? Or do I discourage both female and male gender stereotype? What happens? What's happening if we have a library at school? What kind of books we show? Are we allowed, for example, or in our case, we allow, for example, do we show books that maybe the main character is a lesbian girl, or it's a non-binary person? I don't know if really we do that or not. There are many books, and I'm going to tell you. Another possibility, so the gender disparity, talking about the curriculum materials. So what kind of thing? The male dominant curriculum material we show, male dominates many of the things. Also thinking about gender, sometimes it appears that there are more boys that participate than girls, thinking about binary. What kind of people maybe participate more? Do I allow everybody to say what they think? So these are the things that we can start questioning when we prepare our classes. Yeah. And this is, what are the pedagogical practice do I need myself as teacher to consider to make my classroom a safe, respectful, and inclusive learning space for all my students? What do you think about this? What are the things that I need to create a safe place for my students, thinking about gender identity and all that? Somebody wants to speak about this? Somebody wants to talk or write?
Yeah, remember you can open up the chat, or open up your microphone, or just write on the chat, or both.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a student, so I was doing my practicum this year, and I was observing classes, and this teacher, she used this mechanism of dividing the class by gender to make them compete. So it's okay, boys versus girls. And I know that that is a very quick way to just divide the class and play a game. But I think that we have to be very careful with our practices because they might have a hidden impact. So I think that every detail, every pedagogical detail matters.
Yeah. Yes, because we are the ones who set the example in some way, And as we said, the curriculum, what we teach acts like a kind of mirror, with the students. So, and maybe they feel identified with this. So that's true. Thank you. Somebody else?
You can just speak up. No need for
Okay. Okay, great. So
Yeah.
let's think about ideas. For example, what are the ideas that we can use in our classroom? Think about, for example, some of them. For example, if you are going to teach or give for example, a reading, a listening, or something about a male author, scientist, and maybe what we can do is to offer another option for maybe a non-binary person or a woman to see other points of views. When I was preparing the talk, I saw that in one of the pages in the United States, they talk about history, but on the non-binary point of view. So we have very important people who were or who are, because some of them non-binary, thinking about the past and now. And I found very interesting because you find scientists and different kind of people who did different kind of things, and they were very successful, or they are successful. So it's another way of showing other point of view, and I thought it was great. Another thing is to be aware of the number of female that you call. Again, what maybe Valentina was saying. Okay, you split by gender or by male and female. Are you calling more men or more women, or someone who is non-binary you don't include? So thinking about this, and also thinking about the sexist notions, or the kind of comments that you do, the kind of language that you use in the classroom. And another thing, to design a lesson or a unit based on exploring with the students gender and thinking about equity. You know that the difference between equality and equity. Equality, you are everybody giving the possibility of talking, but equality or equity, sorry, you're talking about giving them all the possibilities according to what they need. So maybe you think that you are giving everybody the same, but you are not giving really what this or that student needs. So thinking about that, try to have equity with your students and provide the need that each of them need. In this case, maybe the possibility of speaking, the possibility of exploring or talking about this topic. And one of the activities that I found that I really liked was learning empowerment and self-identification. And there is a page that provides this kind of identity flower. So you can have the possibilities. I'm going to show you the other page and then I come back. For example, to show about identities, about multicultural society, and maybe to talk with the students to start reflecting about identity. Yeah. So maybe talking about identity, talking about how do you feel. So, and then the student has to complete this flower. And they had to talk about family, about neighborhood, my school, spirituality, ability, race. That is another problem sometimes connected with inclusion that I find difficult, sometimes culture. So then the fact of talking allows them to feel or to say what they feel or how they feel. So I thought it was a nice activity to talk about that. For example, another of the possibility is, you know that in United States they have a no-name calling week. Name calling, it's a word that is used for bullying. There are people who sometimes who are in the non-binary, the LGBTQ community, they feel harassed and bullied by other people because they call them in different ways, that they're all the time bothering them with different things. So they have 1 week that is called no-name calling week, that they try to reflect about that. So I thought it was a great activity, a great idea. I don't know if it's a week, but to bring our classroom to start talking about this, to talk about bullying, how a person who feels out of maybe this binary world in some way that sometimes we are immersed in. So maybe to say, okay, to respect ideas, to respect feelings, to respect many things. So it's a way of teaching our students about gender and about the way of respecting others. And I really like that. So it's called No Name Calling Week. And I am, and you can talk about this. Another thing, here is activity that maybe then I put it here because maybe if you want to have it, you can use it. And it's talking about labels. There is a video that you can watch about that and about stereotypes and about that. And then this is connected now with No Naming Week. Yes, this is, have you seen the impact of labeling this school? How does it feel when you are not allowed to identify with labels that you would like to be called? What does it feel when people use the label that you do identify with? What happens when you are seeing someone use a label they don't identify with or want to be called? And what is the difference between self-identified label and a stereotype? So maybe then you can make the students work in groups and you can show a case study and then to talk about the non-name, yes, non-name calling. So here you have another one. And another thing, someone talked today about the pronouns. That's another question, no? About they, them, him, he, him, sorry, she or her. But look at this. Well, then the other comes. Another thing that we can use is to use more inclusive phrases in our vocabulary. And maybe instead of talking about boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband, you can talk about partner to avoid titles such as Mr., Mrs., Miss. So, or to talk about guys, folks, sorry, everyone. So these kind of things to include everybody and not just to say she or he or her and his. And here we have, for example, all the pronouns: she, her, hers, herself, he, him, his, himself, they, them. And the last one, I don't know if you can, because I have the non-binary one and the inclusive one. So you have ze, his, their, hers, herself, and herself. So to use that, so if that for a person who doesn't feel identified with any of the sexes, or it's part of the non-binary. I wanted to. So here, yeah. So you have the ones that you can use in order not to talk about male and female. So here you have them too. And I found also something connected with grammar. For example, thinking about transgender, that is not with ED, the correct one, adjective is transgender, intersex. Maybe you can talk about this also. in your class, depends on the level of student you have. And another thing that I found interesting, that was a day of silence in April in the United States and many places around the world. They talk about some students lead a kind of demonstration in silence to protest about diversities, sexual diversity, harassment, and all people that feel that they are bullied by other people because they don't fit in that binary world. So in a way of protesting, they have, it's in, I think it was this year, the 29th of April, and they have a day of silence in order to protest about this. So I thought maybe not to have a day, maybe no silence, but maybe a way of promoting our students and to make them speak and talk about this. So I thought it was great. With our families, yes, that's true. Now we are going to talk then a bit about this. And thinking about the teacher materials, I think one of you talked about that. I took a picture because generally we have a typical family, no, the family, mom, dad, grandmother, and father, the woman maybe doing the housework, another typical family, but we never question. I think we just sometimes we use books or we take books because of the content of the grammar part that we want to teach or how it is presented, but we don't think about that. I don't know how many of us question ourselves about this. Thinking about other type of families, and think about speak up and sometimes say something. Sometimes it's necessary to look at the material through the gender conscious lens and see how, I would say, maybe females and male are portrayed. Are the male protagonists of the novel or not? And thinking about the build gender literacy, I was talking about the books because, for example, I question myself, what happened, yeah, if we as students, for example, if we as teachers show maybe a book where the main character, maybe it's a lesbian girl or a non-binary person, thinking about kids, maybe the kindergarten, what parents are going to tell you, maybe, do you think you're going to be questioned or not as teacher? Do you think you're going to be allowed by the school to use these kind of books? So this is my question sometimes. Okay, we can say, okay, may I use one of these books to raise awareness about this or not? These are books for example, the Hitler Has Two Mummies, or Why Pink is for Boys. So these are quite challenging books for kids. There are some others for adolescents. And here says that books are like sometimes windows, no? That says that literature transforms human experience and reflects it back to us. So maybe that's why maybe we can use literature in some way to reflect what happens to our kids on our society, you know, in some ways, and make people identify with this, yeah, or students, and to raise awareness about this. So here is that, not to think about, okay, in the curriculum we are going to include again books with characters that belong to the LGBTQ+ community or not. This is a question that I want you to answer, if you can use or if you would like to use or not. And here we have some other books connected with teenagers too, that you can also use to raise awareness about this. And I like it this and says, because gender equity that I was telling you that is not the same as equality is a universal issue, it is imperative that English language teachers develop a lens through which they can see and think critically about gender, gender expressions, sexuality, and nonconformity. So I think that that's, as I told you at the beginning, my idea today is to raise awareness about the topic. So I would like to listen to you if you really consider that in the material, in the things that you use or not. You say, most of you say yes in the Mentimeter. Okay, in which ways? I want to listen to you in which ways you consider all this and to have other ideas to share.
So Liliana, there are some
Yes.
comments in the chat in case you want to start with them
Oh,
or someone
okay, great.
right,
And we
so,
can too.
all right, so if you want, I can read them to you like
Perfect.
in
Yeah.
order, and then we can start. If you want, guys, then you can
Okay,
add
great.
on with the microphone. So Gracia Mendoza, for example, she says, hello, Gracia. It is important to create a safe space for learning, be willing to learn and adapt, as well as promote the conversations, the easy and the difficult ones as well, challenge our own biases, and reflect on what we need to change to promote inclusion. That's what Gracia says.
That's great. Yeah.
Mauricio Alvarado also says, hello, Mauricio. I think that it's very important to connect with students' realities and what they know and thought and think towards this topic, right? So that's another thing.
Yeah.
We also received Constanza Gonzalez. I think it is important to create a classroom where equity is at the forefront, even
Perfect.
with activities where there is parity and inclusion of the different genders, right?
Yeah.
And we also have Jorge Sanchez. Hello, Jorge. It is also important how students are instructed in relation to these issues within their families. I consider this a key point. That's what
A key point. Yeah, that's sometimes that was my question. For example, what's
Mhm.
happened as teacher if we introduce a book maybe to our students where the
parents.
main character maybe it's a non-binary person, and the kids come to your house and tell the mom or dad, today we did okay. We as parents, what we can say. So we have also to work with the families too, and what happens if we do it or not sometimes. Okay, what is the idea? Yeah.
Exactly. So
Or
maybe
if you
now that
use
we
it,
have,
yeah.
maybe, yes, exactly. Like I was going to say that if you wanted to speak, go ahead and speak.
Yes.
You can open up your mic. Would anybody like to add? Hello to those who are joining us, and if anybody wants to add or tell something about your experiences. Here I have a comment from our Facebook streaming. One of our followers, Jose Francisco, he is saying, I remember one practicum in which I asked students to write name tags with their names, nicknames, or how they wanted to be called, right?
Yeah.
Or to be addressed by the teacher. It worked greatly to build rapport with them. So those are part of the things that worked, that they are sharing.
That's perfect. Yeah, because we need to know as students. So it's one way of knowing them too. Yeah. I don't know if somebody, what's happened with the books, for example? Do you use any of these kind of books?
Aranza?
Great.
Yes, hi. Yeah, the books you showed us caught my attention because I believe that including them in our classes or even in the curriculum can be very beneficial because it can potentially make feel students more confident and easily identified with the characters that appear in the stories. Yeah, maybe yeah, that character is non-binary. It's like me, and the student could be more interested and motivated, for example, in the English language or something else, maybe another topics. So I, yeah, I would say that us as teacher, we must encourage our schools to include this kind of books. That will be great. It sounds
Yeah.
yeah, it will be great to include some of those. But yeah, maybe I'm being too optimistic. Oh, but yeah.
Well, that's great. I was thinking also about families. For example, what's happened when we talk about the common family, and then you have in your house the reality is different. Maybe you have more than you have two moms, you have two dads. So how, because the student cannot feel that they cannot fit in. So now realities are different. So we had to be prepared to show other things now that students feel identified with. So I think it's great. For example, one of the book was about two moms. Yeah. I think now in Argentina we have a story that is called Victoria or something that is talking about that the girl has 3 men because I think one that is a man, the other was the father now is not longer the man. So that these kind of things that start questioning what happened with the, because and who is the man, who is, so many things that we start questioning, and the position and the family, because now families are different and not so traditional as we show in the book sometimes, no? So that's, I think it's great, and I think that when the students don't feel part of your class, this can be a barrier for learning, for them to learn and for feeling comfortable in your class. So if you are open and if you make them maybe feel that you pay attention to them, you pay attention to their emotions, because maybe you have a child that is not feeling well at your class, or maybe is not going to your class, is not attending the classes. Maybe the problem is others. So maybe helping, thinking about, for example, books. I thought about, for example, one of the books that they show that maybe it's the character is a non-binary. Maybe the kids doesn't know that is non-binary, or what is happening to them. But reading other stories, maybe they can find himself or herself in that. Well, again, the pronouns is a problem, because sometimes we don't know how to address it, and in Spanish is worse, because I was looking for that, and in Spanish we don't have a word also for that. But Mauricio says maybe it's optimistic, but you can consider this a starting point. Yeah, a few years ago this was not part of our society, and now we are talking about this. I think it's great. I think that's why at the beginning it says this is to raise awareness, to start thinking about, because in Argentina we have some step, but not a lot at school too. Maybe we have in the society, we have some things that maybe, but I don't know, we are not too open also for that, and depends on the kind of school that you teach also. Yeah, I don't know if there is somebody else who wants to talk or to say something.
It could be either with your microphone or writing on the chat. I'll check if you're watching us on Facebook, you can also make comments
Okay.
on Facebook.
That's great. No, nobody.
I would like to say that
Yeah.
sometimes sometimes we can also not rely entirely in all of these materials, that we can also adapt them. I remember that for the same context that I talked about earlier, I plan a class with some books. It was a book of it was my first book on feminism, and there was another one about a story of siblings. And basically the story tells that there are no differences between the brother and the sister, because the sister likes playing football and that doesn't make her less of a female.
Yeah.
And but there were some things that still resonated with me that weren't exactly right, and I adapted a little bit because of my context. Some of the boys, most of the boys had long hair, and the book said that the boy had short hair and the girl had long hair. So I adapted the story and I retold it differently because of my context. So sometimes we can always adapt the things, like not everything is perfect. But yeah,
that's great. I am seeing your name, and you also have Asia, she. I have, for example, in Twitter and this kind of thing also to identify myself. I didn't write, so that's great too. So that's Valentina says. As I said before, maybe you don't have this in the book, but you can change the pictures, you can adapt, and and to adapt to the reality, or if you want to start talking about the point. So that's great.
And Liliana, there's one more comment on the chat from Natalie Estrada. As the rest were saying, it's very important to include parents and know what they think about it, because I had a very sad experience with third graders making fun of a classmate using words that could only be used by adults, if you know what I mean. So if the parents are using that kind of vocabulary to refer to binary or any of the LGBTQ, then kids are obviously going to repeat them. I hope I read it correctly, Natalie, as you wanted. And Jorge agrees with the comment. Yeah, I think it's
That's
true.
it. Sometimes it's necessary, yes. So maybe to start talking at school also can be a good idea at school to start giving talks about this, no? Or to start talking, seeing how they can help people. And I think we have to shift the paradigm in some way as society, in some way, not only school, because the school sometimes reflects society, no? But well, I think we can do something at least a little bit to change this, to start including everybody. That's it.
All right. So Liliana, I
Okay.
don't know if you would like to include anything else, or if we can open up for some questions.
Okay. So yes, that was, if you know, I just I like it. I'm going to stop this. Yeah. And I like it, this phrase, the sexuality is who you want to be with, and gender identity is who you want to, sorry, I couldn't read it, to be, sorry, I don't know if you can see it, who you want to be in the world. No, I remember that the gender identity is how you feel, or what is your idea that you have about you. Yeah? So that's important, and to respect other people gender identity too. Yeah. So this was I had to thank you for being today here and to start talking about this. Yeah. Real inclusion, it's something that I really like, and I always talk about including students now with learning disabilities and with or the idea of teaching for everybody. And I think it's a topic that we have to start talking again about this, really, no, and to start questioning ourselves as teachers. So thank you for the possibility, and it was a pleasure, really, to share with you today.
Thank you, Liliana, and I think I represent everyone when I say that was a great presentation. And as everyone said, this is a topic that we want to talk about, and we need to talk about. It's like an urgency, and we all want to learn. And I think in this case, it's better to ask, right, and to find the chances to learn. So I would like to open up maybe the floor to see if you guys have any questions or comments that you can put on the chat, and we can read them for you. So if you have any questions for Liliana, for example, feel free to post them on the chat.
I don't know if Valentina wanted to say something. I don't know if she wrote.
No, me? No.
I know. So,
all right, so we have some comments on Anna. Thank you for the presentation, Magdalena. All right, guys. So apparently there are no questions rather than the certificates. We do not offer certificates. If you need them, write to us and we will issue one for you. Yes, no problem, but we not necessarily give them away because these are more community, professional community activities that we do for free. But if you really need a certificate, please feel free to write to TESOL Chile, and we'll make one of, actually we won't, it's actually our vice president Carla Palma is the one who will make one for you, actually. Yes, she's waving there. She's the one who will make one for you. So thank you, Liliana.
Yes, exactly. Yes, thank you, Liliana. Thank you so much. This was so relevant, so important, not only to Chile, but to the whole wide world and to everybody that's interested in social relations, not only the classroom, but is
Mhm.
interested in being a decent human being. So I think
Yeah.
it's super, super relevant. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody that joined us today. Remember that the recording of this webinar will be available in our Facebook and later on in our YouTube channel. So, and also we invite you to stay tuned to see our next webinar next month. Remember that we have one monthly plan till the end of the year. So check it out.